You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Sunday was the last day of the spring portal window for college football players to enter their name into the portal. Remember, you can sign or commit to a team at any point, but you can only enter the portal during the designated portal windows. Now, there are exceptions for graduate transfers who can leave whenever they want, all that sort of stuff. Like, remember, that was the case with Joe Burrow famously, where he went through spring. There was no portal window at the time. He went through spring. He was a graduate. He left and then joined LSU in May. There was one player in particular that if you were an LSU fan, you were keeping a keen eye on and holding your breath and praying. And that's Garrett Nussmeier. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, that's a fabricated storyline. Garrett Nussmeier wasn't leaving. When Walker Howard left, Garrett was committed to being here. I'm here to tell you that's not exactly the case. I believe firmly that had Jaden Daniels not twisted his ankle against Georgia in the SEC championship game and Garrett Nussmeier played the second half, that Garrett Nussmeier would no longer be at LSU. I don't know that anybody will ever say that on the record, but I'm confident enough telling that to you here now because I believe that to be true based on a lot of different conversations I've had. To the point where I know schools that were interested. Don't think that tampering don't happen behind the scenes and through back channels or third parties or whatever you want to call it. Maybe tampering is a taboo word, but call it whatever you want. I don't really care. That's for you all to decide. You all know what we're talking about. And ultimately, we saw what happened. Played the bowl game. Nussmeier got every third series. I believe that was in many ways a way to sort of pacify Garrett Nussmeier, to get him on the field, to have him feel valued, engaged, and involved, and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, that cost you Walker Howard. We talked about this. That was the decision that Brian Kelly made, and thinking Walker Howard would never leave, and he did. And so now you go into spring with Daniels and Nussmeier. And Kelly has said time and again, Jaden is the starting quarterback, but you have to be open when you have two good ones, and you have to be willing to evaluate consistently, leaving the door open. Right? So there's always the possibility. And when you see situations like what happened at Alabama, where they go through spring, they've got Ty Simpson, they've got Jalen Milroe, and you come out of spring not feeling good about either of them, and you don't want to start a true freshman, so what do? Okay, you go get Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame. Right? Sometimes those situations present themselves after spring, but you don't know until you go through it. So I think that's why, if you're an LSU fan or coaching staff or whatever, you were holding your breath until that portal window closed. Our buddy Shea Dixon tweeted earlier today that he spoke with Garrett Nussmeier. So remember, and that Nussmeier is remaining at LSU. Shea tweeted this earlier today. Garrett Nussmeier tells me he's remaining at LSU. Nussmeier passed on both portal windows to stay with the Tigers, with 3 years of eligibility remaining. Okay, so that is significant because remember, while the portal window is closed, sometimes guys could have already filed their paperwork. It just hasn't presented. So we may see in the coming 24, 48 hours more names pop up in the portal that just haven't been processed yet. But that's telling you there, Garrett Nussmeier told Shea, no, I'm staying. Awesome news if you're LSU, because what that does, it solidifies the quarterback position for at least 2 years. You know going into 2023 now, you've got Jaden Daniels as your starter, fifth-year guy, and behind him is Garrett Nussmeier, who a lot of people feel very comfortable with. And then you've got Ricky Collins. So you've got two veteran guys and the freshman. Would I love to have another just in case? Yes. I don't want to be a turned ankle away from having a true freshman as my backup. But that's the situation they're in. And then if you looked at 2024, Garrett Nussmeier is and has to be considered the presumed starter for 2024. What we don't know, and could always transpire is you could have an opportunity in a portal to add somebody else. We saw that last year. I mean, we all at this point a year ago were looking at Miles Brennan, or I guess before spring, we're looking at Miles Brennan going, it's finally Miles' shot, right? He's persevered through injuries, COVID, the unfortunate broken arm before 2021, and finally 2022 was going to be a shot. And then Jaden Daniels popped up into the portal, and you said, man, got a chance to get that guy with a ton of experience. Got to go get him, right? Let him compete. You did, and we all know what happened. Jaden ultimately won the job, and Miles never played again. So we can sit here today and assume that next year, that in 2024, it'll be Nussmeier's team, and maybe it will be. And if it is, awesome. To have a guy as a fourth-year player who stays and patiently waits and finally gets his opportunity and makes the most of it would be awesome. But if you're Brian Kelly, you always have to be open to the possibility of adding guys to your roster that can make you better. But what this does is it solidifies you for 2023, certainly. And Nussmeier basically becomes your guy in 2024, unless if there's a better option. And he's a great option as a fourth-year guy who will have been around for a long time and hopefully gets more experience and playing time this year. So if this is going to sound like a negative connotation, I don't mean it as such at all, but Garrett Nussmeier kind of becomes your floor for 2024. And that's a really high floor. I mean, how many teams in college football would be tickled to have him as their number one? I mean, there's probably, you could name the ones that are set, right? If it's like Caleb Williams at SC, if you're talking about Drake May at North Carolina, Sam Hartman transferring into Notre Dame is going to be their starter. The programs that are set and settled at quarterback. Other than that, they'd probably love to have this guy. So you go into 2024 knowing you're totally great with Nussmeier, and the only way he's not your guy is if some weird a Joe Burrow-like situation presents itself where you have an opportunity to add a guy who beats him out. And if that's or last year with Jaden Daniels. And if that's the case, okay, you're still great at that position. The other thing that this tells me is, and not just the Nussmeier situation. So, that's fantastic for LSU. But just sort of as a whole, I think it illustrates the stability that Brian Kelly is bringing to this program. The fact that they have had 0 spring portal transfers. 0. Not one. It's not to say they didn't have any transfers, because you did have some after the end of the regular season. And that's going to happen in every program. Every program every year is going to have players transferred out. That was true before the portal was even a thing. And it doesn't matter how great you are. Look, Georgia is right now at the pinnacle of college football. They've had guys leave. You don't think Georgia wanted Bear Alexander to stay? Well, now he's at Southern Cal. No matter how good or great or stable you are, you're going to lose guys. So I'm not saying that. I would love it if DeMario Tolan was still at LSU, but Auburn went and dumped a bunch of NIL money on him, and he left. Okay, it's going to happen. You're going to gain some, you're going to lose some. As we say, the portal give it, the portal take it away. But when you can go through spring and not lose a single player into the portal after spring football, the amount of, I think that illustrates stability, but also the level of communication within a program. Because if your coaching staff is being honest and forthcoming with your players, then you know what your roles are, you know what opportunities exist, and what expectations are there. And when that's clearly laid out with a football program or a business, or anything, it's going to help build stability and longevity with a workforce. So just think about where you work. If you know exactly where you stand in your company, what your expectations are, what the goals you have are day to day, how to meet them, and what your benefit will be if you do, that's a good place to work. The same is true in a college football program or anything like that. Anything where you're building structure within an organization. And Brian Kelly's clearly done that. So this was great news today. I don't know that there was ever really a great chance that Nussmeier was going to leave after staying through the last portal window. But the possibility remained. The door was open, or the window, in a literal sense, was open. So now it's closed, and Garrett Nussmeier will be back at LSU in 2023, and presumably for a couple of years beyond that, which stabilizes the most important position in team sports for LSU for the foreseeable future. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.